Hello everyone, welcome back to our this episode. I'm Aditya, co-founder of Adirani DS. Today we are going to see all about Firebase that you need to build scalable web apps as a startup founder. So without any further ado, let's begin. So Firebase is a cloud service by Google and it is generally used to have something where you don't want to create backend or you want something to quickly prototype and scale. You can treat it more like consider that you are given all the functionalities like that you need for login, that you need for database, that you need for storing images or retrieving images. All those functionalities, that backend code is written for you, and you just need to use their APIs, which is nothing but their functions inside your code application. And also you can use their resources like their database, their image storage, and all those things to store your data. So let's get started with how does it looks like. So all you need to have a Firebase account is a Gmail account. And by now, I'm sure everyone has a Gmail account. So once you got the Gmail account, all you need to do is go to firebase.google.com and then go to console. When you click on the console, a new project here, we'll start by adding some details to our project. So just the project name. So here I'm going to say this is the test project. Then I'll get a project ID. Great. Continue. Now, generally, if you have Firebase used for your entire website or mobile application, it's good to have Google Analytics. So I'll just continue with that. But if you're not a Google Analytics fan, you can always turn this off. So continue. Then you just need to create a which Google account, Google Analytics account you want to use. I'll just use our Gargi CMS account. Then moving forward, we will have here our beautiful Firebase dashboard. Now, once we get the Firebase dashboard, we then create an app inside a project. So treat it like this. Let's say I have a web app, I have a mobile app. Let's say I have multiple apps for the same resource. Let's say I'm having an e-commerce platform. I have an app for my marketing website, or you could say like those e-commerce flow, or I have another app like say for admin portal, and I want to keep that layer of separation between all these apps. So for each app, you can create a separate app within Firebase, or you can just create one app that can handle everything. So it's totally up to you. Now let's create just one simple app. Now here we got some options. If you're building an iOS app, you go with this one, Android app, web app, Unity, which is only for gaming, Flutter, if you're building something, let's say with like an hybrid app, which you write once and works everywhere on all the platforms. If you're using React Native, you can always go with the web. So depending upon which technology you're using, you choose one of these options. Let's say I want to create a web app. So I'll go with the web options. So if I go with the web option, what's the name for it? Let's call it like a test web app. Then we register the app. If we need a hosting, like Firebase comes with hosting as well. And in that, you can host your website or any server function that you want to run. Now here, it will give us an example code snippet that we need to add within our project. So if you're using, let's say, Next.js or React or some kind of like a tech stack for your project, you just need to grab this code and place it at a respective position. Now, one thing we need to consider is that this thing, like initializing of app, if you're a coder or if it's from a developer's perspective, this thing is very essential to run all the Firebase functionalities within your code or within your project. Otherwise, it won't work. So once this, assuming that you have added this within your project, we continue to the console, and then we got some beautiful options over here. So you got options for authentication. App check is just to make sure that if your app is, let's say, for a production ready, or if it's somewhere that needs to be used cross country, then app check is very good. Database, we got two of these. We'll see them in a glimpse, like what these two are. Then there are beautiful extensions, there are storage, hostings, functions, machine learning, and so on. Let's go step by step with here, which is users and permissions. So here you will see you can add the users, you can add other members, you can also add other people that you would like to add, and then assign roles to them. In the data privacy thing, you just got some basic details. In the service accounts, now Firebase is generally used to make sure that you don't have to manage the backend, or you have to manage the backend at the least possible way. So if you want to also use Firebase on the backend, for instance, let's say, because generally these APIs are called from the front end so that you don't have to write that much of a backend by yourself. So if you want to use Firebase on the backend, then they also come with an admin SDK. So let's take an example. Let's say we got a React app which talks with a Express, or so let's say Laravel or some backend. Now Firebase, like this Firebase functionalities that I ask you to add the code snippet, that will run on the front end, which is your React app. But if you want to make that Firebase functionality more customizable, you want to get into more of that lifecycle of that Firebase backend, then you need to run certain functionalities on the server, which is your own server, which could be written in Laravel, Python, Node, or PHP, or any language or any framework that you can think about, which is a backend framework. So in that case, you need this Firebase admin SDK. So this, you just need to, you will get the credentials. So if we generate a new private key, you will get the JSON key. You just need to provide the path, and your developer will know most of these things. Or if you're a developer, you just need to follow this step and add this in your backend code. Cool. Also, we got Firebase for real-time messaging. So for cloud messaging, let's say if I want to use web push messages or something like that. Web push is like, let's say if I'm doing something and let's say this is my app and a user, I want to send me as a user, I want to receive a notification, or as a business, someone wants to send me a notification. Let's say Firebase want to show me a web pop-up. Then a web pop-up will appear somewhere over here or somewhere over here, depending on which operating system you're using. And that pop-up can be triggered using this Firebase Cloud messaging. Generally, those are known as web push notifications. For mobile, you can also have those push notifications. Like you might have noticed that maybe for Instagram or somewhere, if someone likes your post, you get a notification, hey, this person liked your post. So something like that, those notifications you can achieve using cloud messaging. General is just the general details of our Firebase project, and if you miss that code snippet there, you can find that again over here. Perfect. Also, we need to install this package, but that's for the developers or if you know the code. Great. Now, let's get started with the build part. So in the build part, you have authentication. Now, authentication is the most painful thing in any application because we need to make sure that not any random user is let into our application, and if they're let in, they don't get access to everything. Otherwise, your app would be compromised. So we need to make sure that it's as secure as possible. Firebase takes care for us, so we don't need to worry much. All we need to do is just tell Firebase, okay, what types of authentication we want in our app. So we'll go with get started. And here it will show us some options. So you can create email password, like simple email password authentication or passwordless authentication if you like. Just save, and then in case if you want to add new providers, you just go over here. I want Google authentication, enable, and then which email support to use, like just like general use Google thing. And then if I can scroll down over here, I just need to hit save, and that will be added as a way of authentication for our app. Now we have enabled these services, but the thing is the code snippet resides somewhere else, but that's not a problem. So if the documentation is very extensive and very beautifully written. So if I go to docs over here, and if I go to fundaments within the docs over here, I can just go to navigate through this. And if I'm using a web app documentation, then the web app documentation, and then just scroll down. And if we just look for authentication for web, there they have all the code snippets that we need, and we can definitely customize the functions that is written over here in the way that we want. So suffice to say that the authentication is taken care for you, but the problem is that the user's details are stored within this users table. And of course, these details are like, because Firebase is providing you the functionality, so you don't have 100% control over it. So in that case, if you're not sure about, okay, where this Firebase data will go and whatnot, then it might not be a good idea if you're using your own servers. But assuming that you're happy with the cloud storages and all those things, and you want to store your users here, perfect. The user details will be here. Only email, password, and other things that happens after authentication. In case if you want to store more details, that's where we have this Firebase Firestore database, where you get key value pairs database. So you can think it like a JSON database or a NoSQL database, or more like a document-oriented database. So here you'll get a key value database where you can create a database, and let's say you choose a region. So currently I'm in Europe, so I'll just go with the Europe region, and then I'll keep the database ID as default. Next, I want to keep this as a secure database. If it's in a test mode, it will be for 30 days, and then it will become more like it will go into production mode, but it's best to start with the production mode first. Great. Now, handling data is another task in itself. Like you want to make sure that, okay, only registered user can handle the data if it's related to them, or you want to make sure that, okay, specific users can only handle that specific data. So if you have this bespoke logic, or if you need this bespoke logic, then you can write within these rules. Here you write the Firebase rules. Again, they have beautiful documentation in cloud storage. So this is known as Firebase Cloud Storage. So here, Cloud Firestore, sorry. So within the Cloud Firestore, you will see all the possible things that are needed to know about the Firestore. So this is known as Firestore. And here you can create your database. So if I create a simple collection, so let's say I call it products, And then I can just have like an auto ID. Or generally these are done through the code, but we'll just use the UI just to will see something. So I'll have a name, let's say item X, and then let's say it has a price, and let's say it has a price of 20, and we can add more details. We can add like more complex data items, let's say JSON or array, let's say options. Let's say here we got a map, and here we say size, and then we add more things, let's say Excel and so on. Like I'm just adding some dummy data, but you can add anything you like, and you will get, you can see your data, you can manage the data from here, and if needed you can just also manage it through the app. Generally it's managed through the app most oftenly, but in case if you want some additional details to be managed on Go, you can use this UI. So next in the list, we got the real-time databases. Now, how does this work? Fast store database, real-time database, like what's exactly is the difference? The main difference being like, let's say if you want to have a data which needs complex querying, like let's say you want to get data based on certain conditions and all those things, and it needs frequent access, then Firestore database is very good if you have some complex data set. But if you have something simple, let's say just messaging data, and you want that to be real time, then this real time database is very useful. If your data set don't require queries, real time data set. If your database requires compound or complex queries, Firestore database. Now, real-time database, we can just create a sample again. So here, I'll choose a region. Let's say I'll go with the Europe region. Then in a locked mode, you can also create in a test mode. It's same like production and test mode. So once that's done, we should see something in a moment. So this is our real-time database. It looks very different actually compared to the Firestore database, but under the hood, you can treat it like it's actually a database only, but just it's not somewhat for complex applications like Firestore database. Next in the list, we got extensions. Now, sometimes you might have Stripe or you might use other things in your app, and you want to have that thing talk with your backend, or that thing should talk with your backend in a smooth way. So for that, Firebase have some extensions, but for that you need to upgrade sometimes to the Blaze plan. So if we go to the upgrade, there are plans over here like Blaze and Spark. Spark is free. Then we got the Blaze, and if we just go over here, you can just do like a quick calculation of how much you will be using. So here they got the calculator. So here I could do something like, let's say I need this much of a data storage, this much of this, this much of this. Like I can just play with this and I will get the cost at the end over here. Definitely, this is too much of a cost. Let's say I just need around 54 GB of data. Let's say document sites of these many operations are going to happen on my database. Then in that case, I will be paying something around this cost. So depending upon how much usage you are doing, you pay per usage. So if my database is, let's say, just 1 GB to begin with, if it goes down over there like this, and this is, let's say, not literally nothing, then in that case, for a base thing, as a startup, if you're starting new, then these things should be very good. But in case if you are expecting heavy traffic, of course, heavy traffic means there could be a chance of heavy revenue, but it's always pay as you go. And based on your circumstances and that, you can decide using this calculator if this is a good fit for you or not. So within the extension, again, you can connect the extensions, so you can have like a smooth communication between the third-party extensions that Firebase provide and the Firebase Firebase backend of yours. For storage, you could use this to store images. If you can treat it more like, let's say, Google Photos, or if you're familiar with Amazon AWS S3, so something like that. So here you can create again a production set database in the Europe zone. Generally, they are known as buckets. So each bucket you can treat it like a drive, and within that you have multiple folders. So you can create more than one bucket. All that data, all those files will be stored over here. And you can also retrieve that using some security rules, making sure that, okay, only those users who have stored their photos, only those can access it. There is no crossover or something like that. So you can define those security rules within the rules section. Next in the list, we got hosting. Hosting is for hosting your site. Again, you need to go on a Blaze plan sometimes for this. So here you can do a host, like you can host your website, and for that, Firebase has again a documentation. And then we have functions. Now functions, it's kind of like an interesting thing. So sometimes you might need, again, you need to go for a Blaze plan, but that's fine. Sometimes you might need just a functionality. Like let's say I have an e-commerce app. and I have written in, let's say, in Laravel or some other options, because Firebase is generally used for Python and Node for now. When this video is recorded, they got their community supported packages in PHP and other things, but the official packages are in Node, Java, Python, and if I'm not wrong, they also got something in Go. So you can always check the documentation, but these are like the supported languages at this time. And functions are something where, let's say, I wrote an application in Laravel, which is PHP. Also, Firebase got the community support for PHP, but let's say I want to use Firebase not for all of these, just to trigger some additional functionality. Let's say I want a backend code which triggers some code in my Laravel, or something I want to do, let's say, connect to, let's say, third-party API through that backend code. So in that case, if I just have a backend code and I don't need any front end, then I could use functions. So all that backend services, generally webhooks or APIs written in that, you can use functions for that. And finally, we got some machine learning setups. So here they got some beautiful machine learning resources, or you could say like a platform where you can either reuse this to run some ML operations in your app. So that's all about Firebase. And this is what, in a nutshell, Firebase is all about. So how, where you can use it, why you should use it, how you should use it. So let's answer the first question: where should you use it? So if you're creating a mobile app, or if you're creating a web app, which where you're just starting off with, and later you want to scale up, Firebase is a good option. It's not the only options. There are other options as well. Of course, things change based on problems and circumstances, but it's a very good option if you want something to quickly prototype and scale up quickly. In case if you're looking for something, let's say just a mobile app without a backend, then Firebase is a very good option. When to use it, that I've already said, like when you don't need to write your own backend, or if you need to write least possible backend for your application, Firebase is a very good option. And why to use it? Well, first of all, it's cost effective. Like that, we have been using it for our website, and I would say it's very cost effective. The way the amount of traffic we get, it might not be for some people because the problems could be different, but for us, it seems to be very cost effective. And also, it's very easier to just add those backend functionalities without having to write your own backend code to that extent. So that's all about Firebase. Hope you enjoy this video. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you feel this video is worth sharing with your network, please do share with your network. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, hit the subscribe button. So see you in the next video. Till the next time, goodbye.